With it being the FA Cup this weekend and there being no championship action, it's only right we do our annual halfway championship team of the season, and who better to deliver it than your dear old pals at the second tier. A quick mention that we've gone for a 3-4-1-2 formation for this team, which is a bit of a different approach from us to how we usually do it. Don't think we've ever gone with the back three before, but that's enough of the bollocks. Let's dive in. Kick us off, Justin Peach, and we of course begin with the man between the sticks.
Yes, the goalkeeper we've gone with is Victor Johansson of Stoke City. I feel like we've got a few good contenders for stoppers this season. We'll get onto that in a moment, but we've gone with the Viking, that is Big Vic, because he's once again been an incredible asset to the team he's playing for. Rotherham have benefited from him in the past at Championship level and obviously in League One, and now Stoke are as well. For me, he's the reason Stoke are not in the bottom three and cut adrift by points. I mean, that is the eye test, but also statistically, there are a lot of numbers pointing towards this being the case as well. He's certainly the top performing goalkeeper by a mile, by the way, when it comes to saving shots that are based on high goal probability. So essentially saving shots that are harder to save. But to simplify it, he's made the most saves in the division out of all the goalkeepers and has the fifth highest save percentage in the league with goalkeepers with better defences ahead of them. So he's the top performing goalkeeper with a shit defence, basically. And that's a good place to be. That exemplifies how much of a good goalkeeper he's been this season.
Yeah, it's a good place for him to be in. I'm not sure if it's a good place for Stoke to be in. This was a close one between Victor Johansson and Michael Cooper at Sheffield United for our goalkeeper of the season so far, wasn't it, Justin? But I took one look at Johansson's underlying data and I was like, there's really no competition here. Whenever I've watched Stoke this season, I've seen Johansson single-handedly keep them in games on plenty of occasions, but you don't really appreciate just how much until you see the numbers in front of you. So the goals prevented metric is regarded as probably the most reliable stat you could use to measure goalkeepers' shot-stopping ability, as far as I'm aware anyway. It takes into account XG and actual goals. So you've got James Trafford at Burnley and Jamie Cumming at Oxford, who are third and fourth in the Championship this season with just under 7 goals prevented, which is very good. Ainsley Pears is the second best with just under 9 prevented goals. Victor Johansson's on 14. He has been by far and away the best shot stopper this season. And it shows on how many occasions he has been saving Stoke's arse. And keep in mind, Stoke have really struggled this season. So I completely agree with you, Justin. I think it's not overdramatic to say Stoke would be in the bottom three right now if it wasn't for Victor Johansson. I don't want to drown everyone with numbers here, but it's no coincidence that Stoke have the 10th best defensive record in the Championship this season, but the second worst defensive record in terms of XG. He has individually won Stoke points on so many occasions, which, as I always say, is probably the biggest compliment you can pay a goalkeeper. He's been one of the signings of the season, and he's without a doubt the best shot stopper in the division for me. Other aspects he could do better with, admittedly, but when it's your meat and veg, just saving shots, there's no one better at this level than him. Honourable mentions. As I said, we were going to do honourable mentions for each position as we go through this team. Justin, Michael Cooper at Sheffield United, we mentioned a second ago. Ainsley Pears at Blackburn, I think he's had a really good season. He's been one of the most improved goalkeepers in the division. We'll say that much for sure. James Trafford at Burnley, we all know is a very good goalkeeper anyway. Any other suggestions you wanted to put out there, Justin?
Oh, Jamie Cummings impressed me at Oxford. He's been a very important player for them in terms, again, just keeping them in games at times. Paul Nardi, I think, has really grown into the season with QPR. And Alex Palmer maybe at West Brom as well. They'll be the three, but I think the ones we've gone with in terms of sort of the top picks like Victor Johansson and Michael Cooper, they were by far the most standout, if you like.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Let's go on to our defenders then. And I know we said we're going with the back three, but we'll start with the right wing back because it feels wrong starting off with the centre back. Right wing back is Jayden Bogle of Leeds United. Now, I'll lay it on the table for everyone right here. I think he's Leeds United's most underrated player. Whenever I see Leeds fans reacting to a good result, you see usually the same old names getting a lot of praise. No one ever seems to talk about Jayden Bogle. which is surprising because he's one of their main attacking outlets. Having been someone who's watched a lot of Jayden Bogle over the years, going back to his Derby days, he's often been quite a raw player, but I think he's really developed into this consistent, mature player who is a massive threat down the right-hand side. And could he be better defensively? Probably, but in possession, he is phenomenal. He loves attacking. He's great at running at defenders. His passing is brilliant. And I'm not just talking about assists. His passing from deep is a really underrated part of his game. And he should have a lot more assists as well. I should point out where we are talking about assists. That's not down to him. That's more down to his teammates not taking their chances. So he's had a phenomenal season and is a key part of this Leeds United team, Justin.
Yeah, I will start with the statement that I don't think Jayden Bogle is a good defender. But what he brings to a team going forwards in that right wing back slot, I think is just quite astonishing. And again, he's probably by far one of the best at what he does. He makes the pitch as wide as he possibly can for Leeds, as wide as he can. And that not only gives Leeds an outlet, in terms of giving them a break, but he's comfortable receiving the ball and getting at his opposition, whoever it may be, whether it's a left midfielder or a wing back, or a full back, or whatever. So, yeah, the what he brings attacking wise is so important for Leeds, and he's scored a couple of good goals as well. His movement is superb, his link up play is really developed as well. But his dribbling quality is much, you could argue it's actually a lot better than a lot of wingers at this level. And he's birthed at fullback, wingback, or however you want to frame it. So Jayden Bogle, as you say, he's matured incredibly well. He's at a huge club in Leeds as well. So he's needed to, take those expectations on his shoulders. And I think he's, to avoid the cliche, I think he's ran with it. He really has. And he's been a really, really important facet for Leeds this season.
I really enjoyed looking at the stat for the players who have had the most touches in the opposition 18-yard box this season. And in the top 75, there are two defenders. One of them is Jimmy Dunn, bizarrely, at QPR. And then the other one is Jayden Bogle. Obviously, the rest are all wingers, midfielders, attackers, and what have you. But Bogle loves getting forwards. And I think he's the best right back in the league. Simple as that. And he's still only 24, by the way. Feels like he's been around for ages, considering we were watching him at Derby many years ago, Justin. Yeah. So I like to think if Leeds do get promoted this season, they've got their right-back position sorted already, because he's a really, really good player. Honourable mentions, Justin, I've got down Trey Hume at Sunderland, someone I'm always a big fan of. Connor Roberts at Burnley always does the business at this level. Anyone else you wanted to give a shout for?
I mean, depending on I know you mentioned Jimmy Dunn bizarrely, but I think he's played a lot of games at right back, and he's been a very solid individual. But obviously, he's played a lot of games at centre half as well, so it's quite hard to shoehorn him.
I didn't want to put him at right wing back. Put it that way, Justin.
Hey, look, if he's getting into the opposition box, then we might have missed out there.
Yeah, true. Anyone else, or is that it?
Yeah, that's the name I'd throw in, Jimmy Dunn. Yeah.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, let's go on to our back three then, Justin. Who's our first centre back we've got down?
I push hard for this one, but we've gone with CJ Egan-Riley of Burnley. Obviously, as I mentioned when we were discussing it, I really push for him because I think he's had one of the most significant rises in the division this season. Wasn't getting a lot of game time, was loaned out a couple of times by Burnley. And he just never felt like his career was ever going to get going. He was signed from Manchester City, but he's playing very comfortably in the best defence to possibly grace the Championship. And he's playing his part as well. He ranks third for the most tackles made amongst centre-backs this season. And when he's got the likes of Joe Worrell and John Egan, just to name two of the centre-halves that Burnley have, waiting in the wings for him to make a mistake, he's been near faultless. And when you've got a defence as good as Burnley's this season, you need to play near faultlessly. And he really, really has been. What a tremendous player he's been. Very calm on the ball as well. And he's doing his fair share of the defending that he needs to do as well. So, yeah, he's a player that's really impressed me, and he deserves his place in this 11 so far.
Yeah, absolutely spot on, Justin. Agree with everything you said there. He was actually signed more than 2 seasons ago, wasn't he, when Burnley won the league under Vincent Kompany. And between then and the start of the season, he had only made 6 appearances and was almost a forgotten man really, at Burnley. And as you say, had a couple of loan spells. And I don't think, I might be completely wrong when I say this, but I don't think the plan was for him to play as much as he has done this season. They obviously signed Maxime Esteve for 10 million, and then they had Dara O'Shea, but then Ipswich came knocking for him, so they spent 5 million on Jerry Worrell, who's a bloody good defender, by the way. Then he got injured, and Egan-Riley came in and has properly grabbed that brass ring. And even when Worrell was back fit, he's not had a look in. Egan-Riley was given a chance, and my God, has he taken it. So he has been an absolute rock at the back for Burnley. Brilliant in possession. Only just turned 22 last week as well. Oh, and by the way, he's played nearly every game in a defence, which has become the first in Championship history to concede fewer than 10 goals after 26 games of a season. So it's not bad, that really, is it?
Yeah, it's a pretty good statistic to be a part of, if you like. And again, when we're talking about some of the best defences that's ever graced this league, I mean, it's that Preston side under Billy Davis in the 05-06, and they were defenders. Whereas, Egan-Riley and amongst others, they are, you just wouldn't paint that picture of them, but they are part of the best defence in the league at the moment, and long may that continue. They've been phenomenal, and that's not an accident either. They are a great football team.
Yeah. It's a lot of it's down to Scott Parker and how much they keep hold of the ball. Obviously, if you got a lot of the ball, then the other team can't score, so that does help quite a lot. But defensively, they have just been so brilliant this season, and a lot of that is down to the rise of CJ Egan-Riley. One of those straight out the Man City Talent Academy, and he's proving to be a phenomenal talent. Let's go to the next centre-back in this back three. It's Harry Souttar of Sheffield United. A bittersweet story with Harry Souttar, a player I was such a huge fan of when he was at Stoke a few seasons ago. Had a stinking time with injuries before that, so I was happy for him when he got that move to Leicester. That move didn't work out, and after a year and a half in the wilderness, he finally got the chance for first-team football on loan at Sheffield United this season, and he has been phenomenal for them. And then comes that crushing blow that on Boxing Day against Burnley he suffered an Achilles injury, which has ruled him out for the season. Harry Souttar cannot catch a break, the poor lad. But for 4 months, we were reminded of how bloody good a player he is. And he had been at the heart of the only defence which could really hold a candle to Burnley's goals conceded record this season before his injury. The man is just an absolute beast at the back end. He will be sorely missed by the Blades, but at least we got to see for 4 months that he's a flipping good defender, Justin.
Yeah, he reminded us just how good he is. It's quite ridiculous, really, that his game time at Leicester has been so limited since he moved there from Stoke. But yeah,
never really understood that, I've got to say.
Yeah, it's really hard to pinpoint. I mean, under Maresca, you can probably expect it because of how they want to play. They want to play probably a high line at times, and that's going to expose him a little bit. But I think if you play to a certain player's strengths, you look at Sheffield United this season, how Wilder's deployed his team. The defensive unit they have to have been. Harry Souttar has been a huge part of that. And he's not just a head it, kick it, lump it kind of defender. He can play. He can play. He really can. And he does show that when he needs to. So a great player. I feel for him massively because what we were promised, we're not going to see, unfortunately. And I think if Sheffield United do get promoted, Harry Souttar's played a significant role in that. And I don't want that to be forgotten. And I think him being part of this team hopefully bangs that drum quite significantly.
If it wasn't for injury, I'm pretty certain Harry Souttar would be playing regular Premier League football right now. Yeah, maybe. And this will be his second injury, which has kept him out for the best part of 12 months in the space of a few years. So it's a real shame. And I hope he does manage to get things back on track. But what a player he is. And without a doubt, one of the standout centre-backs in the division this season. Let's go to the final centre-back then, Justin. We're revisiting Lancashire, aren't we?
We are. And no surprise, it's another Burnley centre-half. It's Maxime Esteve. Esteve, as I say, another Burnley cohort and CJ Egan-Riley's central defensive partner. When you play a part of the team that has conceded just 9 goals after 26 games, then you deserve your place in this team of the season so far. He's played every game, and to be quite blunt, he's a very cool head in a mean defensive team. And you mentioned how important it is for them to be good in possession. your defenders have got to be on it when they're playing it out from the back, when they are composed from the back. James Trafford's distribution is very, very good. The centre-halves have to split very wide. So if you lose the ball in those positions, you are exposed significantly, and they don't do it very often. So not only are they good defenders, they're very good at moving the ball forwards. Probably not as quickly as any of us want it to at times, but it gets results. It garners clean sheets, garners possession, and controlling games. And Esteve, again, is a big, big, big cog in that wheel. That is Burnley.
Yeah, Maxime Esteve, or as he's affectionately known by Burnley fans, Steve. And I mean, we must point out he did cost £10 million in the summer. They initially had him on loan because they thought he was good enough to play in the Premier League. So he should be too good for the Championship. That's the minimum expectations that we have of him this season. It's a lot easier said than done, though. And he's more than done that. We've already mentioned Burnley's astonishing defensive record. He's the only Burnley player to have featured in every game this season. And if we're being honest, I'm just sat here wondering why on earth he's playing in the Championship. Don't get me wrong, I love it when we have players as good as him at this level. But for me, he's a Premier League defender. Simple as that. And I nearly broke my neck doing a double take this morning when I saw that he was only 22. Astonishing, really. So, considering how good he's been this season, I had no idea he was still so young. So based off what I've seen of him this season, I'm pretty certain we won't be seeing this lad in the Championship beyond this season, because I think he's going to be playing at the very top level just now. I think he's a top talent.
I think when you drop into the Championship, it does remind you of how good players are. I mean, we're just talking about Harry Souttar there. Maxime Esteve is another one who sometimes you just need a drop in a division just to find your way in a new country, find your feet again in a new system that is going to get the best out of you. And we're seeing that. And I think, we saw it with Taylor Harwood-Bellis, how good he's become, and obviously getting an England cap and everything else. It really does help improve you as a player. Physically, you can come up against a lot. The relentlessness of the league, it can bring you on, and we're seeing that with Burnley. We're seeing that with Esteve. We're seeing it with CJ Egan-Riley, and there'll be a few more players on this list who I think is going to benefit as well.
Let's do some honourable mentions then, Justin. The reason we have 3 centre-halves in this team is because there's just been such a high standard of centre-halves this season, and we've had to make some glaring omissions, haven't we? So who stood out for you?
I mean, Pascal Strike's another one. He's one actually. He's been tremendous for Leeds, and Joe Rodon, again, has been another player who's been brilliant. Leeds is, again, one of the best defensive teams in the division, but if we're looking at individuals, the players I think we've selected have really excelled. And the other one I wanted to mention is Matty Pollock at Watford, who I think has really, really come on this season under Tom Cleverley. He's needed to. He's had a lot of loan spells out, and he feels like he's really settled in this season at Vicarage Road.
I think Chris Mepham at Sunderland deserves a mention. Jimmy Dunn at QPR, much more comfortable with him at centre-half than I would do right wing-back in this team.
Coward.
But it will be fun to watch. Japhet Tanganga at Millwall, I wanted to give a shout to. And Erin Cashin at Derby, who's someone I've always been a big fan of. All those players, I think, in normal seasons wouldn't be too far away from this team or would even be in this team. But with the standard of centre-halves this season, it's quite hard to leave out the 3 that we've picked here. Let's go to left wing-back in our halfway team of the season. It's Dennis Serkin of Sunderland. Now, he missed the vast majority of last season for Sunderland because of injury, and he's shown this season how much they missed him. Dennis Serkin has been one of the key reasons why Sunderland have had such an unbelievable start. Out of all the fullbacks / wing-backs in the Championship this season, he's the only one who features in the top 5 for most tackles per game and in the top 5 for most interceptions per game. He's also in the top 20 for most clearances per game and most shots blocked per game. So defensively, he's been the best fullback in the division, easily. But on the ball, he's been excellent as well. He's in the top 10 for the most players dribble past per game, most fouls won per game, and most touches in the opposition penalty box. He's the perfect all-round fullback at this level. No one else comes close to being as good as him in defence and attack. And he's shown that on so many occasions in Sunderland's wonderful season so far. Oh, and by the way, he's only 22. Oh, and by the way, Sunderland signed him for 250 grand. It's astonishing, Justin.
that's just a marker of how good he is, because if he's good now, how good could he be next season, the season after? So that investment from Sunderland really does look a smart one. He's got the occasional banger in him as well. He can really hit a shot when he's on it, and he does offer Sunderland a nice dynamic going forwards. Lovely balance to him. I think he's the perfect blueprint for a modern day fullback, where he can defend but he can attack. I know I said Jayden Bogle's not a good defender, but he's a brilliant attacker. Dennis Serkin's very good at both. That's a very, very important thing to have, I think, as a modern footballer.
Yeah, 100%. He and his fullback partner Trey Hume almost embody what Christian Speakman's doing at Sunderland. Yes, there's a lot of emphasis on the academy, but there's a lot of very talented young players available elsewhere who just need a chance to shine. And Serkin is a prime example of that. And now they've got themselves a Premier League fullback, in my view, because when you have got someone who's as good at doing both things like he is, even if he was just good at one or the other, he probably would be one of the best fullbacks still in the Championship. But because he's capable of doing both, that really makes him stand out amongst the rest for me. Because he's just a phenomenal player and without a doubt one of Sunderland's best players so far this season. Honourable mentions, Justin, who do you want to give a shout for?
Harrison Burrows was looking like he was going to be long ahead, but I think maybe a bit of a drop off in form of late has maybe made Dennis Serkin jump ahead of him. But yeah, Harrison Burrows is one that's really stood out to me. To be on Hegem, again, he's another player of West Brom who I think has been brilliant. He's played centre-back and he has played left-back. And again, he does offer a hell of a lot for West Brom in terms of versatility and just his all-round composure with the ball. So there are two that I'll throw into the mix.
Alfie Doherty at Luton as well has had a fantastic season. He's been one of the few bright sparks in Luton's season, which has been a shame because he's been injured for a lot of this. And if he wasn't as injured as he has been, he probably would have pushed Dennis Serkin quite close in this halfway team of the season. So, yeah, plenty of good options at left back / left wing back in this team. Right, Justin, let's have a quick break, shall we? After that, we'll go into midfield and the attack and the manager, of course, for the remainder of our halfway team of the season. Welcome back to the Second Tier Podcast, and this is, of course, our halfway team of the season. Now, we've gone through our defence. That means we're into midfield. So kick us off, Justin. Who's the first centre midfielder in this halfway team of the season?
It's Joe Bellingham of Sunderland. Now, he's a player who's matured incredibly this season. He split opinions, surprisingly, last season, I think, with Sunderland fans. But I think he's really embraced being the main man with the Black Cats this season, especially under Regis Labrie. 7 goal contributions from central midfield is a good return, especially for a player who's just 19. But I think it's his ability to stand up when it matters. It's been so important for Sunderland. He scored the winner against Swansea and Norwich. But his defensive contributions have really improved as well, as is needed to with what Labrie wants to achieve with this team in terms of their mentality. Yeah, and his ability as well to create has never wavered. He's turned into a very good number 8. I think last season he was probably shoehorned a little bit as a number 10, a lot of attacking quality there. But his number 8, his ability to be box to box this season, I think has really, really caught my eye. Yeah. I know he's a Bellingham, but he's really making a name for himself, I think.
Yeah, obviously, Joe Bellingham's been linked with a few clubs recently, and I saw one tweet recently saying, I can't work out if he's overrated because of his brother or if he's underrated because people think he's overrated because of his brother. And I mean, that's completely dependent on how much you rate him. If you don't think he's one of the best young talents in the country right now, you're underrating him. I will be honest, when I was making this team, the first player I wrote down was Joe Bellingham, because I've just watched so much of Sunderland this season, and in pretty much every game, he is running it. Last season, you're right, Justin, he was a young lad who you could clearly see had a lot of talent, but wasn't necessarily being used in the right way. I didn't expect just a matter of months later, though, to be like this, where he's dominating midfields, because he has been using his massive frame to knock players off the ball, win the ball back, dribble past players, play a defence-splitting pass, switch to play, score from outside the box. He can do it all. He is the natural box-to-box midfielder. And it's not just because of his age. It's not just because of his brother. He's in this team on merit. So if there's anyone out there who does think he's overrated because of his brother, you're going to look very daft when he's playing at the very highest level in a few years' time. That much I can say.
Yeah, I've loved him. I mean, even the goal he scored against Derby was just out of this world. And again, a good goal of the season contender because it was a beautifully hit shot that if it wasn't a net there, it would have carried on and done some damage to the crowd because it was hit so bloody hard as well. He's a player who, like I said, that the ability to mature as a youngster, I think, is the biggest indicator of where you're going to go. You know, if you can really embrace it. And almost I think I've said it before, you have to develop an ego a little bit. You have to know you're going to be the main man. You have to know the spotlight's going to be on you and you have to embrace it. Michael Olise, I think, has done it wonderfully. You know, it's borderline arrogant. It probably comes across as arrogant, but, you know, in fact, I think that's why these players are so good. And I think Joe Bellingham is very much getting comfortable with the idea that he needs to embrace that to really push on. And as I say, that maturing, I think, is the biggest indicator of where he's going to go.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to a midfield with Joe Bellingham and Enzo Lefebvre in it, Justin, because that is going to be, it's just going to be a cheat code for the Championship. Let's go to our next centre midfielder. Just a reminder, we have gone for a 3-4-1-2. So we've got two midfielders, then a number 10. But our next midfielder in that two is Ebo Adams of Derby County. Yeah, this might be a controversial one, Justin. I think we may get accused of having black and white tinted glasses on here, but I think he just has to be included in this team. There's only 3 Championship players this season who have made 100 tackles and interceptions or more. Millwall's Casper Denora is third with 100. Shay Charles at Sheffield Wednesday is second with 110. Ebo Adams has 140. He is miles ahead. If you take any 2 Championship players outside the top 35 for the most tackles and interceptions this season and combine them together, Ebo Adams has more than them. It's astonishing figures, Justin, but the man is simply a ball-winning machine. His main job is to win the ball back for this team, and he's basically hitting the equivalent of Alexander Mitrovic a few seasons ago numbers when it comes to winning the ball back. And I tell you what, he's scored a few goals this season as well. So we haven't mentioned the miss of the season against Cardiff, but look, we'll just pretend that didn't happen. But look, he's not the kind of guy who's going to be pinging the ball 50 yards. He's definitely not the most technically gifted player in the Championship by any means. However, when it comes to running your socks off, covering every blade of grass and winning the ball back for your team, he's the best in the division at it by miles.
Yeah, look, if you disagree with this, I will come for you. There is no... You have to understand the nuance of midfielders and you have to really respect the dirty work to really appreciate Ebo Adams, because I think with the ball, he's not the best. He can get by. I mean, he's a professional footballer, for goodness sake. But his ability to read the game, being in the place where he needs to be to win the ball back, because physically he's an athlete. But I think his in-game intelligence is by far amongst the best in the league, because you don't hit those numbers by accident. You're not just always in the right place at the right time, are you? You have to be in the right place at the right time. You have to know where the ball's going to go. You have to win your tackles, and you have to predict if you're going to hit your 50-50s, etc. These things aren't by accident. He's so damn good at it, and it's ridiculous how good at it he is. Yeah, there was a couple of times this season, a couple of games, one against West Brom, where Derby were playing Marcus Harness, a winger, at central midfield, and Kenzu Goodmean, in central midfield, who's a technical player. Ebo Adams was in that midfield on his own, and he still dominated the middle of the park. So, look, he's by far the best baller in the division. If you're going to throw comparisons around, there was a lot of love for N'Golo Kante years ago, wasn't there? And he fits that bill perfectly.
I'm not going to disagree with you on that just now. I think the point you were making there about his intelligence is a really big thing, because a lot of people may watch him and think he's just a headless chicken running around the park, but he's not. He does run a hell of a lot, but he's got a lot of intelligence about him as well. Worth remembering as well, he cost £500,000 in the summer. Derby signed him from Cardiff, and they made it pretty clear they weren't too bothered about him. They could have really used someone like him this season, but it's Derby County's gain, and that's why he is a massive fan favourite at Pride Park, because he gives 110% in every game. And there's a reason why you often hear the Derby fans go, "Boo!" every other minute, because he is constantly involved. He makes himself involved. And that's why I'm happy for him to be in this team, because I think he bloody deserves it. I don't think anyone else comes close to covering the same amount of mileage of him as him this season, Justin. It's not having two players in midfield, isn't it? He counting as two players, I mean, because he's just been that good this season. Let's go to our number 10 in this team, Justin. Who's the player we've got just behind our two strikers?
We've gone with Finn Azaz of Middlesbrough. Do I need to say anything? Honestly, the sheer numbers we were talking about Ebu Adams and his ability to win the ball. Finn Azaz's ability to create is just astonishing. He's leading the way in terms of goal creating actions. He's got 8 goals and 9 assists this season so far. It's just a record that your eyes will dart towards straight away. And I said it on previous occasions this season, I think he's got the quality to be crowned Championship Player of the Season, given his influence on games, because I do believe if he's not on it, Borough's comfortability going forwards drops considerably. You know, he's a player you've got to build your team around. And again, just those numbers he creates, the key passes, his link-up play, his ability to find space and penetrate defences is just ridiculous. And I think if he does carry on the way he's been going this season, it'd be hard to see him not crowned Championship Player of the Season, or I would very much campaign for that to be the case, because he's been by far the best playmaker this season.
Yeah, I was just looking at this team, Justin, thinking we need some creativity in there. So we probably should introduce the division's best chance creator for my money. Yeah, Finn Azaz is simply a creative mastermind, isn't he? A brilliant passer, a brilliant crosser, excellent at set pieces as well. He is such a difference maker in the final third for Borough. And he's got some brilliant goals this season as well, hasn't he? So, I mean, speaks for itself. 8 goals, 9 assists this season. It's not a bad tally by any means, is it? And when you've got someone who's doing the business in both camps, that really shows how big a player he has been for Middlesbrough this season. But I think he's just one of my favourite players to watch, because he's so silky. He stood out on loan at Plymouth, and they've struggled ever since he left them. And in time, he's become one of Middlesbrough's most important players, so often so, and I think you kind of hinted at this, Justin, it can often be the case that if he doesn't play well, then Middlesbrough don't play well. Luckily for them, though, he's produced in the majority of games this season. And how? What a player he is.
Yeah, can you imagine if Middlesbrough could put away chances earlier on in the season, what his numbers would actually look like?
Yeah.
That's quite scary, actually, because we all know they are criminal at missing chances. And Finn Azaz would have played his fair share of putting those chances on a plate. So again, I think 8 goals or 9 assists, probably doesn't do him justice. He should be on a lot more than that. So yeah, he's a player that you've just got to embrace while they're here, because they're not going to be here for long in the Championship, that is. They're going to get big moves. If they don't go up with the team they're playing for, they're going to get big moves. You look at the likes of Saeed Benrahma, Ollie Watkins is another one. You just got to love them while they're around, because they're going to cost £25-30 million in a season or two.
Honourable mentions for central midfielders. Georgie Chakvetadze at Watford, someone I was pushing for to be in this team. I think he's maybe been slightly harsh to miss out on it, but I won't disagree with the 3 that we've included here. I think he's a marvellous player. Alex Marrott at West Brom, unbelievable player, Justin.
Yeah, he's been quality this season. He really has. He's a player who looked like he was off from West Brom. He was one of those signings that it was obviously Valérien Ismaël who brought him in, and he just never really got going. And then under Carlos Corberán last season and into this season, he's been great. He's back to scoring incredible goals, and his left foot's just ridiculous. So again, if he can carry on producing the way he is, then yeah, he's in for a shout for players, not player of the season, in the team of the season at the end of the campaign.
Yeah, you were pushing for him to be in this team as well, weren't you? But this is how we decide on this team of the season. Josh Brownhill at Burnley, another one I wanted to give a shout for. Shay Charles at Sheffield Wednesday, the only person who can even come close to Ebu Adams' ridiculous ball-winning numbers this season. Anyone you wanted to give a shout for, Justin?
I mean, Vinicius Sousa's been great at Sheffield United. He's one player who's stuck out for me. I think, in terms of mentioning quite a few already. But yeah, big Vinny. Again, he's just a player who didn't really settle last season, but a drop in the Championship has really brought him out. I wouldn't say out of his shell, but he's really brought him out for Sheffield United this season.
Let's go to our front two in our halfway team of the season. The first one is Josh Maja at West Bromwich Albion. Who'd have thought that Josh Maja, a man who only started one game for West Brom last season, would be in this position? 12 goals in 26 games, and now included in our halfway team of the season, the ultimate honour in many people's eyes. But considering we're talking about a guy here who did score 16 goals in the French second tier a couple of seasons ago, but other than that, the last time he broke double figures in a season was back in 2018 with Sunderland in League One. So for him to have 12 goals at this stage in a championship season, after having many years of struggle, is an incredible turnaround in his career. And I don't think many West Brom fans would have been too fussed if he left last summer. Now he's been the best striker in the championship this season. And I suppose it just goes to show what happens when you give a player who had a lot of promise as a youngster, if you give him patience, give him a chance, put some belief in him, it can work wonders. And Josh Maja has really shown what that can do this season.
Yeah, this has got Carlos Corberán written all over it, hasn't it? Just his ability to turn a player whose career looks like it's going nowhere and turn him into an absolute gem. It's just what he does. He did it with Danny Ward for Huddersfield, amongst others. Sorbo Thomas is another one who's benefited greatly as well. So he's a manager who really brings the most out of individuals, and Josh Maja is another one who's benefited. He's a player who I've really enjoyed watching this season because I've described him as a poacher, because the way he gets into the box and in between the posts is like an experienced goal scorer. He reminds me of Pippo Inzaghi sometimes when he can get in between the posts, but he's also very effective at dropping deep and really impacting play. And I think if the attacking players or his teammates around him were a lot more productive, he's relying heavily on Tom Fellows here, but if other players were stepping up and providing a lot more, I think he'd have a few more goals than the 12 he scored already this season, which again is an interesting thought to have. So yeah, he's a player who's really stepped up, and I think Carlos Corberán is a manager who deserves a lot of credit for turning his career around.
Yeah, absolutely. West Brom have struggled a bit for goals this season, but you can't point the fingers at Josh Maja in that regard, because he has really played his part. And you're absolutely right, Justin. It's not just goals. He does come deep. He can dribble past players, plays through balls to his teammates. He's an excellent striker. And now West Brom may be thinking, maybe struggling to hold on to him if he keeps up this form for the remainder of the season, which is quite the turn of events when, as I say, back in the summer, I don't think many West Brom fans would have been too annoyed if he were to just leave. Let's go on to the final player in our halfway team of the season, Justin, who's playing up front alongside Josh Maja.
I wonder how much supporters of the club he plays for are sweating right now. I wonder if he's going to be in this team of the season. But of course, it's Boy Signs from Norwich City. It's very obvious. He's created a season's worth of highlights in just half a season. He scores screamers. Well, he just scores screamers all of the time. It's quite ridiculous how often his ability to come inside and just hit one into the top corner. It's quite ridiculous how consistently he does it. He's got 2 hat-tricks already this season against Derby and Plymouth. He's the definition of individual quality and probably personifies what this team of the season is. It's all about the individuals and how much they benefit the teams that they play for. Boy Signs has scored 15 goals this season. It's hard to see him not going to break 20, maybe 25 if he can get going again, because goals have slowed down a little bit in the lead up to Christmas, but 15 for the first half of the season is just unreal. It really, really is. And as I say, he's an individual highlight reel, and he's got Norwich, I wouldn't say out of jail at times, but when they're not playing well, he's just got the habit of just scoring from 25 yards. He can just do it.
Yeah, and if you rewind to last season, Boy Signs impressed on occasion, but he was often outshone by your Gabriel Saras, your Johnny Rose, your Josh Sargents. Now that 2 of them are gone, and the other one has been injured for most of the season, he's been the main man at Norwich, and he's definitely taken up that mantle. The crazy thing is, he has actually gone through a quiet spell in terms of goals, as you were alluding to, Justin. He hasn't scored since November, yet he's still top goal scorer in the division by a fair margin, which shows you how much he has been banging them in for fun. And I can't imagine there are too many players who have scored 2 hat-tricks in the first half of a championship season before. And you're right, he scores all types of goals. Plenty have been from miles out, which he's had no right to score. There have been other occasions where he's just nipped it past a defender and then slotted it into the bottom corner. He has scored them all, and this is by no means a dig, but he could have had a fair few more as well, because he's missed the second most big chances this season. But as long as he's getting those chances, getting in those positions, creating those chances for himself, that's all that matters. So an incredible season for him so far, even if it has been a bit quiet recently. Justin, I think he pretty much had his spot in this team nailed after a couple of months of the season.
Yeah, probably since September, it's been a guarantee that he's going to be in here. I mean, we've not had a blessing of goal scorers, have we, this season, which has been quite a surprise. But that's why he's really, really stood out. And as I say, Norwich have needed him at times. Obviously, Josh Sargent getting injured. Kenny McLean with suspensions. Several other players getting injured. He's had to really step up, and he's been so consistent. He's played every game so far this season. He's played a lot of minutes as well. He's only got 3 assists, which for a winger is probably a little bit disappointing. But when you can just score from 25 yards out, why not just pull the trigger? And he does that, and he does it with such accuracy and consistency. So, yeah, he's a great player. I'm really interested to see how he's going to progress and develop through this season, and how the team develops around him, because players are going to come back from injury, and surely those numbers are only going to go up.
He's probably looked at his teammates and thought, oh, Josh Sargent's not here, is he? Oh, I think I may have to, do the job by myself a few more times.
Just going to ping it. Go on.
Just be a bit more selfish, and that's exactly what he's done this season, and it certainly worked out for him, hasn't it? So, yeah, you can't really lay much criticism at his door for his antics so far this season. Honourable mentions, Justin. I will be honest, and this is by no means to cast a shadow towards Maja or Saïns. I was struggling a bit for honourable mentions in terms of forwards this season. I did want to give a shout for Ben Doak and Tom Fellows at Middlesbrough and West Brom respectively. And they, if we didn't play with this formation, they may have slotted into this team. Romain Essa at Millwall's another one as well. But in terms of strikers, I was particularly struggling. I don't know if you've got any shouts.
No, I think we're a bit hamstrung on on good forwards this season. I mean, Tom Cannon has looked bright in spells for Stoke, in a really poor Stoke team, it's worth adding. Callum Lang has impressed for Portsmouth. Liam Cullen has scored, I think, 8 goals this season for Swansea, but have they really been massive standouts for the season? Probably not, no.
Yeah, I mean, Joel Pirro's got 15 goal contributions this season, which is a pretty good tally, but Joel Pirro is often quite unconvincing, isn't he, in a lead shirt? So, yeah, as I say, I don't want it to sound like Maja and Saïns have got this team because there was no one else, but there just wasn't that many other options in terms of forwards this season. So that's just how it goes sometimes, isn't it, I suppose? Let's go to the manager, the person who is going to be guiding this wonderful half-rate team of the season, essentially our manager of the season so far. It's Chris Wilder at Sheffield United. And it's got to be said, Justin, Chris Wilder has really made sure that we have taken our fair share of eggs to the face this season, hasn't he? They're essentially 2 whole omelettes on each of our faces at this stage. And that's because I thought Chris Wilder's best days were behind him at the start of the season. He had a pretty miserable few seasons prior to this, and it didn't seem like he was capable anymore of turning things around at Sheffield United. Yet, here they are. They would be top of the league right now if it wasn't for points deductions, and getting a team top of the league is incredible in its own right. But the context of how shit Sheffield United were last season, plus the disarray at the club in the past couple of years, makes it the outstanding job for me. He has been helped along the way, particularly by Mike Allen, Sheffield United's head of recruitment, who did a sublime job last summer. He had an absolute blinder, did our old Mikey Allen. But Chris Wilder has played the biggest part in turning his Sheffield United ship around, and that's why he's got to be manager of the season so far for me.
Yeah, we need to approach Chris Wilder with a, look, we were wrong. It's fine. We're not mystic. We can't see into the future. If we could, we wouldn't be doing a podcast. We'd be millionaires because we could see into the future. So I think the best way to describe Chris Wilder is where he's taken Sheffield United from. It was a record-breaking season in the Premier League. They conceded the most goals in history, over 100. Yikes. The squad was in disarray. Players who formed the identity of the club for years and years were leaving. Chris Basham, John Egan, Ollie McBurney, Ben Osborne, Wes Foderingham. The list goes on. There was a lot of ownership uncertainty. There was a huge recruitment drive. The club pressed the reset button in the summer on everything but Wilder, which for me was a surprise. But now, when you look at it, he's put together one of the toughest defences in the division. He's brought players in and instantly trusted them and improved them, the likes of Harrison Burrows, Harry Suter, Jezreel Raksiaki. He's got the form in Tyrese Campbell for the first time in a long time. Our expectations were so low of Chris Wilder. He's proved us wrong, and many others who doubted him. And fair play. And now, the biggest compliment we can give him is we rank him as the best performing manager in the Championship so far this season. Look at that.
Yeah,
incredible.
And all we can really say, Justin, are those two magical words: fair play. As we say, taking a lot of eggs to the face with our predictions and our commentary on Chris Wilder at the start of the season. And here he is proving there's still life in the old dog yet. And that's why Sheffield United have arguably been the best team in the division this season, because of Chris Wilder's wonderful work. Will he be able to get it over the line? That's another question for another day, and we'll certainly look forward to finding out how that gets on in the final 20 games of the season. But in the first 26, Chris Wilder, without a doubt, manager of the season for me so far. Honourable mentions, Justin, I tell you what, John Eustace at Blackburn, he ran that bloody close, didn't he, considering what he's had to deal with this season and just how well he's done. He has done a phenomenal job. Regis Labrie at Sunderland, obviously got to give a shout for as well, considering the mess Sunderland were in at the end of last season. He has really turned things around there as well, and has had them absolutely flourishing. So he's another one who ran things close to old Chrissy Wilder. Anyone else you wanted to give a shout out for?
I mean, Tom Cleverley deserves a shout because a lot of people predicted Watford to go down. And Watford aren't in a position where they're going down, are they? He's really, really turned the ship. And when you consider the fact that recruitment has been a problem this summer, the owners are disinterested. He's been the face of the club and he's handled it with a hell of a lot of dignity. And he's put a lot of confidence back into the club from the fans, which I think is a very difficult thing to do at Watford. So Tom Cleverley, I think even lasting this long is an achievement as Watford manager, but also what he has achieved this season under the stresses he's got deserves a mention.
Yeah. Gary Rowett as well after 4 games. What a guy.
Oh, Gaza.
If there was a manager of the season award for just 4 games, then bloody hell, he would have absolutely taken that home.
If he keeps Oxford up.
If he keeps Oxford up, then he's definitely in the conversation come the end of the season, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, Peachy. Anyway, ladies and gents, this has been our halfway team of the season. We thoroughly hope you've enjoyed coming along with us for the ride. Well, it's been a quiet old weekend with it being the FA Cup. But of course, Patreon subscribers, don't go anywhere because we've got the extended edition of the weekend show coming up, which we like to call Zamora Time. We'll be doing a Q&A, answering your questions which have been put forward to us on the Discord, including how we do the research for our games and which team currently outside the Championship we think is very Championship. So we'll get onto that very shortly. And if you're not a Patreon subscriber, make sure you sign up to get some more time in every single weekend show. Head over to patreon.com/second tier. Link is in the description of this episode. We'll be back again on Thursday, where we'll be doing a news roundup, as well as talking about a handful of midweek games, which are coming up in the old Champo in the next few days. So we'll look forward to seeing you then for that. This has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.